Morning. Today is Friday, the technically Black Friday, but it'll be a cold day in hell before I go into a mall on that day. Hope everybody had a good turkey day and you're a little bit fatter for your troubles today and you had a good meal and gave a little bit to those in need, because that's a good thing to do as well. Today we are in the local area because last night, if you're in the lower end of Vermont, you know that you got about a foot of snow, or from what I saw on the social media related things and real time traffic cameras. So whether I go there tomorrow or not is kind of up in the air, because there's a lot of snow there now, number one, which is good for tracking, but it's also going to be windy and therefore cold as hell. I think the wind chill is going to be like 1 degree where I'd probably end up going. The areas in the current more. So the roads have been cleaned off, but the net effect of that much snow on the ground means that the forest roads going into a multitude of locations are, in a sedan such as my own, not drivable, and that limits your points of ingress were I to go up there tomorrow. So that's going to factor into my decision tonight. They went back underwater. I'm suspecting that they're actually muskrats, because they would have probably gone over to that little dirt moundy looking thing over there. That could be a muskrat nest potentially, but if they're hanging out underneath or they went up into a beaver lodge, because those don't really look like they're not maintained. They actually do look fairly recent. They would have gone up under there, but because there was like 4 or 5 of them. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Otherwise, where the otters are, you would think with them seeing me over here, they would have come over, because otters tend to be curious, but not the case. Interesting, though. I haven't seen them here before. And I'm actually kind of watching the surface for signs of activity, and I am potentially seeing some, so I'm kind of watching that. It's not why that's why I'm not rushing into the tree line just yet. Part of me wants to know what they are and confirm their identity, because last time I was in Vermont, I saw a type of water bird I hadn't seen before, and I thought at first it was a loon, but it didn't look like one. And when it finally got up and flew off, it actually flew like a duck. It turns out it was a common goldeneye, a type of duck I know we have in the greater New England area, but I hadn't seen before. Out of luck of the draw. Usually 9 times out of 10 you see mallards. That was not a mallard. There was a duck though, from the way it flew, because loons do fly differently. I have some footage of one, this being a loon, on a pond that I was in I want to say August. I'm guessing muskrats, because otters wouldn't be underwater that long. So the muskrats saw me in Amsgrade, because if they heard or saw me, and they took shelter somewhere to not be around. They're not seen as frequently too. Otters would probably be more evident because of their nature, their playful, curious nature. They'd be more obvious, and the fact that you have these things take cover speaks more to muskrats. So I've never seen a family group of them doing that before. Interesting stuff. So never actually seen anybody out on a boat either, but somebody over there has left a canoe. If that's yours, it's just sitting there. But with being myself out here, it's not like I'm going to haul it out and steal it on you, because what the hell would I do with it? I would literally have nowhere to put it. Not that I'm a thief anyway. I saw that. I'm kind of taking my leisurely time to see if they come back up and if I can get them on camera for folks, but they don't feel cooperative, it would seem. I'm guessing that moundy thing over there is their nest, because they were right in the midst of that, and that seems like a long swim to go underwater. You would have had at least one of them surface at least once, and they weren't in that area. They were right in there. Unless they are otters and they have a little den along the shoreline right there. If they don't come back out, I'm not going to know. So it's going to bother me. Anyway, a little bit of nature interaction. I didn't catch them on camera because, like I said, they dove under when they noticed my presence. But such is life. Some wildlife is a little bit more cooperative than others. But let's move on. And I'm going to take a segment break, and either something else will happen wildlife-wise, or we will try to think of any recent Bigfoot-related nonsense going on and see if we can offer any commentary like that. And as predicted, the last time we were talking about a Bigfoot photo that had made its way, a trail cam photo, the witness / hoaxer was, he had a GoFundMe for some reason up within a day of this, which is reeks of a red flag. So the minute money's involved, it's just like, okay, really? Anyway, we're going to keep moving, and mainly because it's one of those days. It's just cold enough that it's cold if you don't keep in motion. So we're going to do that, and we'll see what happens for the rest of the day, and we'll be out somewhere tomorrow too. So the video for the weekend is going to be kind of a combined 2-day effort just because of that. We have a long weekend and we can get into more than one place, local or Vermont. But as I said, the conditions based on the phone's weather app is it's going to be 19 degrees where I would be with a wind chill of 1 degree, which is really, really, really cold. So your decent odds are I'm going to be here or somewhere in the general neighborhood of here. So we'll see what that comes to, and we're going to take a segment break, and we will be back shortly. So, yeah. And it could be that I only speak on behalf of my own personal neck of the woods in the federal ecosystem when I was there, but a combination of petty corruption and politics and bureaucracy that goes into levels that are ultimately self-defeating. I don't know where there are hunters, but there is gunfire off in the distance. I do hear it. We hear you, Elmer, but quite honestly, why should I be very, very quiet? Because he's hunting rabbits when he's not being very, very quiet. Screw Elmer. Anyway, my thoughts on the government thing by themselves. If you did have a near human monkey man running around, would they care enough to declare it a national security thing? I would honestly say no. Without some kind of a monetary incentive, as in, look at what happened with the spotted owl as the obvious example, where the tree hugger crowd kind of came in and did all this campaigning, and all of a sudden Big Timber couldn't go into a whole lot of territory because it was the natural habitat for a, I'm guessing, endangered owl species, which, what the hell was that? I hope the camera stays. Let's go look and see. I don't know what that was. Day of weird noises. Sounded like it came from this direction, so let's take a look. I'm not saying it's anything Biggie related, but I'm purposely making a little bit of noise to see if I flush something out in here. But maybe not. Maybe not. At least the nice thing today is there's no wind. The other day when you had the roaring wind, it was actually interfering in hearing things. It's a lot stiller today. All right, maybe not. False alarm. Gunfire, but yeah, so back to the government. If there's any cover-up incentive, it is monetary because, again, spotted owls, the example, look what happened there. Not that it's not that they didn't have noble incentives in the case of the owl, and I do have a soft spot for raptors, so fuck big timber. But again, in my own travels, I've not encountered federal or other related scrutiny for doing Bigfoot related things. However, I also tend to try to keep a lower profile as well. I'm not gonna ever be the Steve Culls of my neighborhood just because I have a different way of doing things. And everyone and anyone has their way of operating, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that, but because quite honestly, if everyone was doing things the right way, doing things the same way, and they were doing it wrong, you're never gonna have any progress. If what I'm doing is wrong and somebody else is doing it right, then they win, I don't, and that's the end of that. But I did say there were 3 options, didn't I? The third, it's just not in the area that you're looking. If the wild was teeming with them, we wouldn't still be looking. That's why every time I hear a sighting report or something where you have somebody, it's like, oh, well, it's like right here, and then you have like a Girl Scout camp. I'm actually citing an actual BFRO example. Like literally 100 feet away. If it was there, it would be seen. I'm going to go to a segment break on that note, and I'm going to take another look around to follow up on that noise. It was probably something as simple as like some kind of wildlife in the woodwork. Because I mean, if I saw otters in the pond to my right shoulder, over my right shoulder, then that's a new thing. I hadn't seen them here before. But the canoe is new too, so what do I know? But segment break, we'll be back in a bit. You know how that works, and we'll see in a few. It is day 3 of our Thanksgiving weekend vlog series out here. I guess we'll call it a series because it is 3 days running. It's Sunday today. We're in an area a little bit north of where we were in the last 2 days, and more of the same. We're going to check on conditions. You can see again, a day later, light snow. I think we're past the point of where we're dreading the white stuff. It's more or less here, and again, Vermont was a matter of, I heard a foot, I heard 10 inches, but like north of 8 inches, so significant snowfall. And yesterday, all day, the real feel, according to the weather app, was 1 degree with a wind chill. Which is kind of preventative for getting anything done in the way of anything like this up there. So we're going to enter into a couple of areas in this area. We're on a different camera because the card on the other one is full. As you can tell, a day later, and the weather has become a little more winter-like. I'll try to keep this as steady as I can. I'm kind of improvising because I'd forgotten my card is full. But first order of business, we're going to go down to the pond and see if we can make a second attempt to identify what was playing in the water yesterday. I suspect it was probably a family of otters that's taken over an abandoned beaver lodge. There are actually 3 of those. And we are in the presence of hunters, so we need extra caution there. I was wondering where they were. Now we know. They're right around the corner. That's going to affect my strategy here. This is all frozen over today anyway, so you may not even see them. I think it would be prudent, though, if I'm going to do that, to go back. I'm going to check here real quick, but then I'm going to go back to main road, so that I can at least make them aware that they have company in here, so they exercise the right caution. Right now I'm being a little risky. But at least I know where they are. I'm going to keep a respectful distance and then rethink some things. I also don't know how much power and disk space I have on this camera. I suddenly am pessimistic about finding them today, because if you look, it's all frozen. And given that it is a bit colder today than it was yesterday, I'm looking around at, per se, that beaver mound over there, and I'm not seeing signs of activity. So what I'm going to do is kind of head back towards the logging road and make myself visible so that my company knows I'm here, and we avoid mishaps that way, and we'll kind of take things from there. Because clearly they're like right over, for the sound of it, on the other side of there. And I'd rather have them know I'm about than risk having some trigger-happy shotgunning redneck do something stupid, like shoot me. And we'll kind of take things from there. So, not ideal, but it's also Saturday, so they're going to be about, and anywhere else I go today may have, where I was going to originally go, there were already two guys there. They're right there. Two dudes in orange who are probably going to yell at me because I am not in orange. Okay, I know where they are. I am going to take a short break from filming and made contact with they're not the hunter I heard, though. They were two kids out with their dad, and they're out basically stump shooting, I guess. But it was better just to let them know that I'm here to avoid mishaps. The other guy is in here somewhere, and he's definitely not shooting a BB. Those guys just had BB guns or pellet guns. This guy was definitely shooting something a little bit north of that, like it was at least a shotgun, if not some kind of muzzle loader. I think that guy said it's not quite muzzle loader season down here yet, so probably a shotgun guy. But with that known, and with the pond frozen over to the extent that it is, the chances of determining if it was otters or not is probably less. And given the safety factor of having this guy around shooting, I'm going to stay on the road where hopefully I'm more visible and he's less inclined to be trigger happy. But unlike myself being stupid today, those three had bright orange on, so the guy should at least be cognizant of the fact there's other people out here with him, so hopefully he's not fucking stupid. Anywho, not having seen the otters today, kind of just do a quiet walk through to get to the mass side, and we'll see what's going on there. You can still kind of see things. If I see something interesting, I'm going to just have to, like I said, exercise an element of caution given the nature of the risk with this guy out there. I'd like to be deeper in today, but with that guy out here, not knowing where he is, until such a time as I can make contact with him, if I do at all. We'll do that. This guy was heading out anyway, so it's just as well, but all indications are the other dude came in from the opposing side, way over on the others from Massachusetts. So he's either on an ATV or he's parked way the hell back there, because that goes back at least. That's going to be a ways. So again, today the wind chill in Vermont, should I have gone up there, is like 1 degree, so they claim. So a little chilly for my trouble. So, unfortunately, I'm not really aware of any new news since yesterday, so not sure. So there was a sighting in the Squatchachusetts group, and they were talking about a place down in Mattapoisett. I looked at that. It's I've always been kind of skeptical of the Freeland, of the, what is it, the Bridgewater Triangle area, that forest down there. And this is like in a weird little south of Boston corner of Massachusetts, right by the coast. And although it looks like it's fairly wooded, there's not really any migration routes or anything. So I don't know what to think of that. I'm not sure. My first inclination is to be skeptical. I know there are others that, that Bridgewater Triangle is their little bread and butter in a few different ways, and I get that, but I look at valuable habitat, and it doesn't look like that big an area to me. It's surrounded by a lot of urban shit. It really is. So there's a guy who I guess is a member. I don't know if he actually ever was a member of the network, but I guess he's a member of the Massachusetts group now, and he believes in the possibility of that in that area a lot more than I do. Let's just put it that way. To the point where we've had a couple of verbal skirmishes on Facebook. And yeah, it's gonna be a cold day in hell before I ever call it Meta. It's Facebook. Just like Twitter is Twitter, and I'm not on the platform, and I'm not going to be on any platform. This is a social commentary where the head whiny little bitch in the form of Elon Musk is going to sue people who refuse to advertise on this platform, as if that isn't their choice. That is the most arrogant freaking statement one can make in a position like his. Anyway, so the sighting is, I don't know. They had a guy go out and take a look around. I had toyed with the guy getting down there too, but it's not in an area I was hoping it would. It was further out, and as a result, a lot more tricky. I keep pointing this way because I'm looking to see where that guy is. Given that it's not a windy day, and given that it's so still in here, the noise of a shotgun can carry for a way. So it's kind of hard to see how far in it was. But all the more reason to play it safe, I guess. Some would say you should be out here, and I have orange on under, but it's also cold out, so. Unlike yesterday, I brought a coat. But For those who understand more about that area in Massachusetts, if you feel like chiming in the comments, I'd appreciate that. I'm not going to totally poo-poo it because like Bridgewater is not so far from the Hockomock Swamp, and that's got a reputation, at least on a folklore level, going back a mile long too. And I don't know about this area, but I don't know, it's an interesting one because it's in a weird area that's very like I said, it's like close to the shore and on the bottom southeastern corner of Mass. How woodsy is that? Because I would think that'd be a lot of like reclaimed forest, if nothing else. Not that they can't be there, it's just because when we went years ago with Nezra into the Pine Barrens, a good chunk of that woodsiness is of that nature. It's all reclaimed. At one point it was like all cranberry bogs in agriculture and nature took over it, and now it kind of looks like manicured forest. It's kind of a weird environment, but I like to stop every now and then listening to though. But we'll take a segment break in a little bit so I can do that better. But I am looking around on the assumption that the guy is wearing bright orange. I may also relocate too, just because I know he's in here now. And we'll figure that out. So I'm going to take a segment break, if only to save the battery on this. My one camera's full. I don't know how much. I mean, this one's got hours of battery life, but the limitation would be on the SD card, I guess. So we're gonna take a segment break and on the way back in this direction, we ran into the other guy who I got talking to briefly, and he's out hunting. Nobody sees a lot of tracks today. Granted, it's a fresh snow, but I thought I'd... Hard to tell if that's like actually a moose track or not. But I guess he was coming up from here. That would actually make sense. He went that way. But if he came up from this side of the pond, that's where the shot came from. So I don't know what he was shooting at, but it wasn't me, so I'm glad for that. But we're kind of following his tracks and just... I'm presuming this is him. So kind of getting a little bit less Bigfoot today and more hunter hide and seek. It's not necessarily ideal for tracking, because if you look at the nature of the snow, it's kind of inconsistent too. So, and as the day warms up, maybe it'll melt a little bit. Because it looks like it is in some places. But we're gonna make a pass by the pond again, since we've located a dude with a shotgun. Nice enough guy, just hopefully he wasn't... You kind of never really know who is gonna be trigger happy or not. So you kind of have to be careful with that. This guy seemed okay, but I have had run-ins with poachers unexpectedly, and that always makes for an interesting situation. Not in the last 5 years, but my most recent one was kind of sketchy because, you know, my little story time is pulling into the trailhead basically that way, probably about 2 miles over there, and They were gunning for coyotes, I guess. It's kind of odd, though, because it was January, and by January, most hunting seasons are done. I do know the coyote in Connecticut can be taken in the right places and with the right paperwork and the right licensing pretty much 365 a year, but these guys, they were acting twitchy, for lack of a better word, and I in my opinion, I thought I was being friendly and just kind of like, how's it going? And they got twitchy and packed up and abruptly left, which almost certainly means they were kind of doing things that weren't really on the QT or weren't on the up and up. So I decided to relocate myself just because you just never know what you're dealing with in a situation like that. Hunter safety is most of them, if they're out today and they're out with, like some dude out with his kids that are he's just training them how, is probably pretty harmless. Minus the kid doing something overly rambunctious and not with the most sense, but. And this guy seemed okay too. He looked like he's not somebody to worry about, but I have said it once, I'll say it many times. I'm a lot more trusting of bow hunters and that type because doing that myself, I know enough about the expense level of the ammunition involved, and you're not going to be trigger happy unless you have a whole lot more disposable income than I do, because that gets expensive quickly if you start losing arrows or bolts if you're using a crossbow. Broadheads are not the cheapest thing. And they're nasty enough that if you did have an accident, I'd really almost rather be shot than freaking hit with one of those. That's going to do you an immense amount of internal damage. You really would not want that. But anywho, I'm reasonably confident that the gentleman that I just ran into was he had walked in from the Massachusetts side. But it's nice and quiet, but all froze over, so the hopes of running into the, if they are otters, can't really confirm my theory that that's what they were, because I've never seen muskrats socialize in what I saw yesterday, and otters would be a better contender for that. They seem like they're a lot more playful and social, so I'm wondering if that beaver mound over there has been abandoned, because I think it's the oldest one of the three, and I could see a bunch of otters like basically taking that over if there was no one else living there and making it theirs. Be kind of cool to have otters around, but just not those big Amazonian ones. Those are terrifying. Those are no joke. Those things are big, and it just seems like they're one of the things in the Amazon that you don't see a lot of the wildlife going out of their way to screw with them if they can avoid it. Those and those weird ass pink river dolphins are you kind of like just leave them alone, because they're meaner than they look. I've seen a few things on TV where the pink dolphins, now I'm just rambling about wildlife, have a local reputation among folks in that neck of the woods that they're not like playful bottlenose dolphins. It's like they have a dark side to them. And like when they had the River Monsters show on, and the extreme angler guy from Britain, I think he's English, he had a show with them on, and they seemed very bitey, very snappy and bitey. So yeah, it's like I don't know, maybe it's just because they're weird looking, but they do look like they're not as friendly and cute and as inclined as the other ones are. Like they don't really have a problem messing you up if you follow the wrong cues. Yeah, so as far as I figured, that guy was just over there on the other side of the trees. So best to just like get back on the road. That little path there, the logging road, and be more visible. Excuse me. But let's take a moment and see if there's any signs of life. But yesterday, only a portion of this was all frozen over. I'm thinking they were in there because they were like right around in that area. I could be wrong, but there's like a bunch of trees right over there I took pictures of yesterday that also have some fresh beaver activity. Like they just like got chewed on there. The nature of the wood that was left on the trees is like fresh, so the beaver activity is fairly fresh. They're in one, either that one or that one over there. You see how there's three, and I mean, I suppose they could be muskrats, but the way they were playing and the way they moved through the water, they looked like otters. They really looked like otters. Not that I have a lot of experience with otters, but we do have those in Connecticut. The numbers, I'm not really sure, but you'll see them. There's actually a spot right just south of Hartford, the capital, where they're near the river, so you see them come up from there. But the other reason I'm in here today and wanted to opt this over like freezing my ass off in Vermont in 1 degree is I want to see if that infrasonic whatnot isn't going on yet. But I really don't hear much of anything. So it's quiet. But the interesting thing is the complete and total lack of tracks as I look through here. Not much of anything right now. The hunter dude said there's a lot more predators out here now. Maybe that's got something to do with it. But I don't know. I guess this is going to be a quiet one. And again, I suppose I could come out again tomorrow just for the sake of giggles. You won't have any hunters out here. So less opportunity for them to dictate limitations in my explorations. I don't have to come right back to this area. It's obviously pretty quiet here of late, but maybe I'll do that. So I'm not going to do the whole YouTuber subscribe like thing just yet, because I think I'll come back out again tomorrow and have a look around. Get like a 3-day effort in after I move some things this afternoon off of the other camera so that it's not full as well as this one, and we can carry on and make a half-assed video with different levels of video, because this one's more regular looking, whereas the other one's more like a fisheye lens, but it's this one's got like the crazy battery life, and I normally would have, I actually have the damn gimbal on my person. I just didn't know what the power level of it is, because you do have to charge it up. That occurs to me now. Anyway, we're going to take a segment break, and we will either come back should something occur on the way out, or we're going to come back tomorrow and do this again, because I like being out here, and when it's quiet in the winter, good for thinking. So, if nothing else. It is day 3 of our Thanksgiving weekend vlog series out here. I guess we'll call it a series because it is 3 days running. It's Sunday today. We're in an area a little bit north of where we were in the last 2 days, and more of the same. We're going to check on conditions. You can see again, a day later, light snow. Think we're past the point of where we're dreading the white stuff. It's more or less here, and Again, Vermont was a matter of, I heard a foot, I heard 10 inches, but like north of 8 inches, so significant snowfall. And yesterday, all day, the real feel up, according to the weather app, was 1 degree with a wind chill, which is kind of preventative for getting anything done in the way of anything like this up there. So we're going to enter into a couple of areas in this area today, have a look around, see what we find, and it's back to the weekend. We see what next weekend brings. But a little commentary today based on some stuff from last night. And I'll cover that in a bit. But let's get moving, see what we find. With the light snow, there's some element of trackability. So let's see what we do find. And on a day without any hunters around to be in the way, we can do that a little bit more effectively. So we'll do that and see what we find. The men in black kind of thing, like soldier-looking dudes in black patchless, no identifying marker kind of uniforms, but otherwise they're not rangers. They're clearly soldiers, and they're like all black oppy and all that. And then he made mention of unmarked black vehicles and the quintessential black helicopters, all that good stuff. And until I encounter such a thing, not that I'm looking to, I kind of like take that with a grain of salt for reasons that my skepticism is like, I don't see why they wouldn't. Honestly, having, again, worked with the federal government or worked for them in a different capacity, I am kind of skeptical they have the ability to be that talented. Maybe it was just the area I was, but if so, hopefully other areas do better. But the one story that struck was the one where this anecdote was told by a hiker dude. He doesn't say what park he was in, but he he basically tells a story of, I didn't see anything, I heard something. And then they try to imitate it, and damned if it is not the same exact sound that I heard. This low throbbing wah, 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 wah kind of sound. And he has a recording of it, like that's exactly the same damn thing I heard. So when you have something like that come from another person's story, and they're telling it pretty much the same way, although in his case he adds in the black garbed soldiers and things of this nature. I've encountered this twice, and I didn't encounter any of the men in black whatnot. But the area that I've encountered it in, although you have a fairly widespread wooded area between Connecticut and Massachusetts out here, more often than not, especially during hunting season, you have enough people out here and even in winter, you have cross-country skiers, you have snowshoers, you have hikers, you have people out walking their dog in the snow. There's enough people that some activity like that would not go unnoticed. That is not a track. That's a double rock indent, just to make a point from this one, and likely this one. Just for people that want to see Bigfoot tracks everywhere. I mean, it kind of sort of looks like one, granted, but it's not. So, yeah, I wanted to comment on that because that's an interesting little parallel. Because I don't purport that what I heard is necessarily Bigfoot related, but I have been able to measure the actual infrasonic output. And there's also a signature of electromagnetic and electric along with it, all occurring at the same time. And I've been able to measure it at least once, and it was consistent for about 4 or 5 different readings that I got. So it is, quote unquote, something. What it is, I have no idea, but it's definitely infrasonic in its nature, and it is over in that area. I've encountered it in the same area at the same relative time of year, which does lend a certain consistency to it. So I will be back in that area for obvious reasons to see if I can encounter that again this year. In fact, the infrasound project is now part of that, along with a couple of other projects I have under the umbrella of the NESN field efforts to look into things like this. That's what I had covered. I'm not aware of any other breaking Bigfoot news that came out that's so earth-shattering that pops in my head. But that was worth a mention because that's not necessarily Bigfoot related. And every time you want to just give a pass on some of this conspiratorial 411 stuff, you'll have somebody mention something like that, and like, that's exactly what I heard. And I can say that probably is a thing. Now, what it is, I have no idea. It could be a completely natural phenomenon for all we know. But I've heard that, so I don't immediately dismiss that gentleman's story because I've heard it was literally the same sound. So that is intriguing. In my opinion, more so than the recent Massachusetts sighting at Mattapoisett. Just, it seems like a very isolated kind of environment where something in there couldn't really move enough to have a valid long-term food supply. I could be wrong, but I look at the overall environment along with everything else. So that's my thought for now. I'm going to do a little bit more covering of ground and do some tracking and see where we find ourselves, and we'll be back in a bit. We're going to take a segment break, though, and although I have emptied out the SD card and have that on my computer back home, I also don't know how much battery this is. It's not on a full charge, so rather than have it awkwardly cut out in the middle of something, I'm going to take a segment break and allow for some tracking today since we still have snow on the ground as much as I can. It's not ideal conditions, but there's enough to try. Yeah, we'll see if I find anything, at least like a couple of deer tracks, because I'm not even seeing them. It's not that cold yet. Anyway, we'll be back. Not sure if this is just cleanup for the logging road or something. I don't see any signs of new logging or anything. Let's go take a look, actually. But there's like nothing for tracks in here. What's interesting is just how quiet it is today. There's like literally no noise. And occasionally you'll see, I wonder if there's just like not enough snow here to really show coherent tracks. But there's no signs of new logging, and they usually will put up signs about an impending timber harvest, which is southern New England for logging, and I don't see it, so. But shoving this all out of the way is something new, so maybe they had a storm and they had a whole bunch of crap come down across the road. Because this is part of a watershed, so maybe they cleared this all out for access. Anyway, unless something happens on the way out, that's about all I had for today. It is absolutely quiet, and I'd rather spend the time walking back and forth listening in. No offense to my audience, but it's a perfect day for doing it. And other than that, we're going to do the YouTube thing now. Like, subscribe, give comments or suggestions. Tell me why I suck, but leave a reason why. Otherwise, unless we have an addendum to offer on the way out, behave. Hope you had a lot of turkey, and we'll catch you the next time. And stay safe and all that in the meantime. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.